You're about to meet with a few friends for a coffee. One of them says she's going to get drinks for the group. Once you arrive, your drink has already been paid for, you take a sip out of it and it tastes completely fine, even though it was ordered over an hour ago. But the friend next to you starts convulsing, and after a few minutes she ends up dead. Indonesians have a proverb that goes, "When two elephants clash, the mouse deer caught in between is doomed." In today's murder case, two elephants will clash while the tiny mouse deer get to be spectators in court. The reason why you should never read your script notes on the phone as you're recording a YouTube video is that somebody is going to message you that they're gonna spend their days off on the beach and they can't really talk to you because they're gonna be like on the beach. First world problems. Some people are actually enjoying the summer, enjoying the sunshine, while I have yellow eyes because of the lack of vitamin D. I have a feeling when you read that on Google it said like high blood sugar or something, but yeah, you self-diagnose yourself. Come in. Hi, Maya is the name. Gone bad is the game of the day. I have not done an international case in a while, and I also have never done a case that involved coffee, which could be considered a passion of mine. So I thought, in today's Gone Bad, the series that I do on this channel, where I talk about people that have led ordinary lives until one day they just switch to crime, well, let's talk about a case that combines those two passions. That combines what is your passion about being international? That is my passion. I'm so biased towards people who are immigrants. It is unbelievable. But then people who live here are biased towards, the nationals, the people that live here. So I have no regrets. Okay. It's great to know. So today we are going all the way to Jakarta in Indonesia to speak about the death of Mirna Salihin. And bit of a disclaimer, yes, my voice is still not back, so thank you for bearing with me and for listening through these videos that I don't sound like myself in. I don't know what's up. I don't know. I also don't have the sense of smell or taste, and apparently the C tests are coming out as negative, so yeah. Let's just dive straight into this story before I self-diagnose myself again. Mirna Salihin was born in 1988 as the daughter of businessman Edi Darmawan Salihin. Jessica, who was 28, and Mirna, who was 27 when the events of the day took place, became friends when they were both studying at a design college in Sydney in year 2008. After she finished her degree, Jessica went to work as a graphic designer at the ambulance in New South Wales, and Mirna returned to Indonesia to live there. Now in 2014, so roughly 2 years before the event of the day, Mirna actually told Jessica to break up with her boyfriend. The two of them were chatting and she gave advice to Jessica to break up with a boyfriend because apparently he was rough and he was a drug dealer. So she didn't think that he was appropriate to her and that he was treating her right.
What drew you to her? I think she's the most wonderful person I have ever met because she has an amazing outlook in life.
2 years ago, Mirna holidayed in Sydney and caught up with Jessica. But the two women clashed when Mirna gave Jessica frank advice to dump her then Australian boyfriend.
Mirna is very upfront when telling off people, and sometimes it can be a bit harsh. So I think it went like this. Why are you so stupid? Why do you want to date this guy? I mean, what about your future? But apparently after telling that to Jessica, Jessica just went quiet and then left Mirna in the restaurant.
Did she ever say to you or to anyone that she had reason to fear Jessica?
After that meeting, she grew a fear of Jessica. Like, she don't want to meet her face to face, just the two of them. She wants someone to accompany her.
So on one end, you have Jessica that just abruptly left that restaurant, and you have Mirna who kind of is fearful for her life, doesn't want to meet with her any longer without somebody accompanying her. Nobody really understood the toll this took on Jessica though. For over 12 months before the events of the day, Jessica attempted suicide various times. She would get hospitalized because she crashed a car into a nursing home, which resulted in her having the cracked ribs, and the police actually thought she was drunk driving. So this conversation kind of caused her to take a dive when it comes to her mental health. She was also threatening colleagues. She broke off with her boyfriend and they were suspicious of vandalism of his car. And she just switched and became really snappy and just violent in communications with her coworkers, with her family, with everybody that knew her. On the other end of the world, Mirna gets married. She gets married to Arif, the guy you just heard speak. She gets married in Bali, has this beautiful, gorgeous wedding. Both of these families are rich, hence that proverb from the beginning of the video. And Jessica doesn't get an invite. So one woman is thriving. She met the man of her dreams, she had a wedding of her dreams, she's starting the life that she always intended to live, and Jessica's mental health is really taking a toll on her in New South Wales, to the point that because of her outbursts, she actually lost her job. Due to this, Jessica decides to go home for a while. She at this point already had Australian nationality, so she was already naturalized. So she decides, let's just take a mental health break, let's just go to Jakarta for a while. So in the beginning of December 2015, she starts reconnecting with friends, including Mirna, through WhatsApp. Now that Jessica is back in Indonesia, she is again chatting on WhatsApp, arranging the time and the date, and they agree to meet up at Olivia restaurant. This is kind of like a posh cafe place that also serves food at the Grand Indonesia Mall. And this is where the weirdness begins, because even in the WhatsApp chats, Jessica offers to pre-order drinks for everybody. And from this reenactment that ABC has done, it kind of just seems that both Mirna and another girl named Honey, who they were meeting with, both said like, we can order our own drinks, like you don't have to pre-order for us. But Jessica was insisting, so she was asking them like, what your favorite drinks are, what would you like to drink? And then the oddity of the situation, of course, doesn't end there. They agreed to meet at 5 p.m. But Jessica is seen on the Olivia CCTV footage kind of just like checking in and seeing if there is space 90 minutes before that. Now, as a person who is always early to everything, 90 minutes is, even for me, too much. Like, half an hour, you can kind of understand, you check if there is space, it's a mall, so you walk around and then you come back closer to the time. Even then you come back a bit early because it's just how your brain is wired. But she appears 90 minutes before, and of course they're like, well, come here closer to the time. So she kind of just like says no worries and then gets out to the mall and then goes to buy gifts for her friends. Apparently it would later be made public that she just went to this store that sold like cosmetic products and got 3 different soaps. So she got for all 3 of them like a different soap. And these soaps were packed in like quite big bags if we are talking just about soap. It's kind of like the bag you would put, I don't know, jewelry in. I'll put it up on the screen. But if we are thinking that there is just one single soap in each of these bags, like why did she need 3 different bags? All of these weird observations become relevant in the story later. As soon as she bought these soaps, she returns to the restaurant. And now this is like 4:15-ish. And in this CCTV footage, you can see that she's checking the table that they have said they have available, and then is looking to spot different CCTV cameras. This is what everybody says about this story. I don't know if you see anything else. I don't, and I find this so eerie because it's so obvious that she sort of stares directly at one camera, then looks towards the other, and kind of is scouting like to see which cameras are directed at this table that they have said they will have available for them. Between 4:15 and 4:24, she is now seated at the table. And the way she sits down is she puts those 3 bags where the soaps are at right in the position that it obstructs the view from the CCTV camera that is far away at the bar. And she puts them at the table, which you would think like there's enough space. She's still waiting for the friends. Why is she not putting just those bags next to her? Why put them on the table? She orders the drinks, and as she's waiting for them, that grainy CCTV footage from far away shows her kind of like spacing those bags out, purposely making sure that she obstructs the view from what's going on most of that table. And also the cameras did work in her favor. That one from the bar has really grainy footage, so you can see it's really far away. And then the one that is sort of right next to their table, well, the plant is obstructing the view over it, so you can just sort of see like the waiters passing by and bringing her those drinks. At 4:24, you can spot the waiter dropping the drinks onto her table. After a couple of movements behind those bags, you can sort of see like as if she's like aligning those drinks or whatnot. Then she takes the bags off the table and places them on the seat next to her. This next part I've seen different times in different sources. So some sources state that the 2 friends arrived at 4:45, some say it was more like 5:15, that they were actually late to this meetup. So within that time range, the 2 of them arrive at the bar, and Jessica is kind of like giving them those drinks, you know, like, hey Mer, you ordered this. And here you can kind of put yourself in the shoes of these people, just looking at those drinks like, okay, great, she paid for them, but it is the iced coffees, but the ice in them probably melted over the past hour. They probably kind of don't look as fresh, nor do they look as cold as they should be, but you're like, okay, cool, my friend just paid for my drink, like of course I'm gonna take a sip of it and see if it actually tastes nice. So when Mirna does so, she kind of just takes a sip and pushes it away, saying like, oh no, this tastes awful. What you can see in this footage is her head falling back on that seat, and everybody sort of starts panicking immediately because you can't see the close-up of the situation, but she started foaming at her mouth. As the commotion is happening, the waiters are sort of starting to approach to help out. Her friend Honey is trying to help Mirna, but Jessica is just sitting there, not reacting and not doing anything. That is until the manager shows up, and then she attacks her, saying like, what did you do? What did you put into the coffee? The ambulance gets called and they take Mirna out of the restaurant, but one thing that doesn't happen is that nobody conducts a search of Honey nor Jessica. And that is because they're still unaware of what exactly has happened or how serious the situation actually is. The question that becomes prevalent from this point on and during the trial is, was she actually poisoned in the first place? So once Mirna is pronounced dead, once she goes to autopsy, toxicology reports get performed. And at first, these reports tested negative to cyanide in gastric fluid, in her bile, in her liver and urine 70 minutes after her death. And only a small amount of cyanide was found in her stomach a few days later. But what they also conduct tests on is that particular coffee, and they find that that coffee actually, because she only drank a sip if you remember, had around 298 milligrams of cyanide, which was enough to kill a woman of her size. This will lead to the biggest contention point of this case. Could natural causes really be ruled out? Would the sip of the coffee that was laced with cyanide really have had that effect? And if so, why was cyanide not found anywhere, but only there were like traces of it in her stomach? Surely it would have been found in different organs within her body, in her throat, in her digestive system, like somewhere else, not just being picked up in the stomach and only days after her death. We'll discuss this a bit later in the story, but I just wanted to paint the picture. Remember when Mirna just fell back and the foam was coming out of her mouth? Well, even the tiniest sip of cyanide would basically, when swallowed, be destroying everything on its way. Cyanide is a corrosive substance, so it would be destroying everything on its way. But the fact that they could find traces of it in the stomach means that there is a connection between the sip of the coffee that Mirna took and the fact that that cyanide ended up in the system, and that that should be considered as her cause of death. Going off on this theory, they investigated the hotel staff, they interviewed all of them. Of course, none of them has ever poisoned a single person, they did not have the possession of cyanide, so that left only one person as their prime suspect. And on January the 30th, 2016, the police arrested Jessica Wongso. The trial began on the 15th of June and lasted for about 5 months, or 135 days, and it was broadcasted live, and it became sort of the equivalent of a telenovela in Indonesia. They have a name for it. I'll put it on the screen if I find it. I didn't note it down. Basically a form of a national spectacle. One of the clauses preceding the trial, and why it actually took between January and June for it to happen, was that Australian police wanted to agree to assist the Indonesian police with the investigation, but only if they were assured that she would not be handed the death penalty. And this was on the basis that Indonesian legal system could have handed her the death penalty as the punishment for her crime, but the Australians once told her, like, if you want witnesses of character, if you want our experts to look into this, because she lived here all the way up until the events of the day, well, you kind of gotta find a leeway and take the death penalty off the table. So let's talk about the evidence in the trial and start off with the elephant in the room. So the defense was saying that the natural causes of death shouldn't really be discarded, that cyanide was barely found in her stomach, so the amount shouldn't have killed Mirna, and that in fact you can't even really contribute the death to cyanide, because if you remember, they've done that toxicology report like 70 minutes after the murder and they couldn't find any cyanide in her gastric fluid. And this forensic pathologist even went as far to say that 0.2 cyanide that was found in her stomach, so like the minuscule amount, could have actually been produced after her death. Of course, you would think the prosecution would have like a slam dunk case here, right? There is a connection, there was cyanide in the coffee and then there is cyanide in her stomach, so cyanide is the cause of death. But the minuscule amount of it and the fact that they could never tie Jessica to any purchase of cyanide, or like how she would actually have hands on any of it, like no correspondence about buying it anywhere, no like CCTV footage showing her obtaining it from anywhere, really didn't go into their favor. In order to show her character in court, prosecution brought her ex-manager to the stand, and this person kind of described her connection to Jessica in the past year in that ambulance where she worked as the graphic designer. And she said just based on her conversations with Jessica, she found her to be very capable of doing something like this. In particular, there was this event when Jessica was hospitalized for one of her suicide attempts. And obviously she was hospitalized at that ambulance that she worked in, so her ex-manager comes to visit her. And Jessica starts telling her how she's being treated so poorly here. They're treating her as if she killed somebody. And if she wanted to kill somebody, she would know exactly how to do it. And she would know just the right dose. And the manager's kind of there like slowly backing out, like, you were just saying how you were treated poorly and then you kind of shifted there, kind of took a left turn. But basically the end of this witness testimony was there to show that she is very capable. She was very snappy, very much violent with her colleagues, and her history within that year kind of doesn't help her out. Like, her mental health took a dive, but also she was becoming more and more reckless and just vengeful. Arif, Mirna's husband, testified how in October in 2014, Mirna gave advice about Jessica's relationship with her boyfriend. He also mentioned the thing that he mentioned in this ABC interview about how Mirna was afraid to meet with Jessica alone because of her anger. Her parents testified for defense, saying that she never showed any violent spikes with them. She did have like some mental health issues recently, and that is exactly why we should be treating her more gently than what we are doing right now. They testified that the motive, whatever they think it is, like what she told Jessica to break off her relationship, she didn't do anything else for Jessica to have spiraled this way. Like the motive was just not strong enough. But most importantly, they couldn't connect Jessica to the purchase of cyanide. Like, how would she have gotten the cyanide? And then the CCTV doesn't show her putting anything into the coffee. And here is where the frustration lies, that I hear it and you probably hear it, and the prosecution kind of had to mention it, but they couldn't do anything with it because, first of all, Jessica wasn't tested for cyanide. So in CCTV, they speculated that she kind of like was scratching her hand, which is something you would be doing when being exposed with cyanide, let's say, as if you were spiking the coffee with it, and then like a bit of it maybe touched your hand or you were just in the presence of it. But nobody searched her, or Honey for that matter, and nobody tested any of them because they only discovered the cyanide might have been a cause of death 70 minutes after she has died, and probably after they actually processed those reports, which means if Jessica even had some cyanide, she would have disposed of it. The court also heard the testimony from the 3 employees that worked at Olivier at the time, the receptionist and the 2 waitresses. In their testimonies, Jessica actually asked for that table in particular. Then you see her sort of checking the cameras just to confirm that that is the right table, and that one wasn't even empty at the time. So when we saw her in the CCTV footage at the beginning of this video, well, she was basically just waiting for the table to become available. And that is probably why she actually came to the restaurant about 90 minutes before, and then when she returned with soaps, she knew she still had the time to wait for that exact table. And they also testified to something that I find interesting, and that is that she immediately paid for the order. And this is when like the culture clash in different countries obviously comes into play. So people in Indonesia, and especially Olivier workers, actually said that that is really odd. Like, customers don't usually pay up front. They pay after they ordered, plus it is a restaurant, right? So they could have ordered some food, like her friends might have wanted a different drink, like why pay up front, especially when you're there early and you plan to just sit there for quite some time. Now let's speak about one last witness here, and that was Mirna's dad. When Mirna's dad took the stand, there was a bit of a bombshell of a discovery, because he actually spoke about this chain of messages between Jessica and Mirna that was found after her death. And in these messages, it kind of appeared that there might have been a completely different motive. So far, the motivation here is that Mirna was thriving, she was having a great life while she was technically telling Jessica to break off her relationship, didn't even invite her for a wedding, which made Jessica super jealous, vengeful, like why can you have everything that I don't? But now when these messages were shown to the people, there was an insinuation that Jessica might have been infatuated with Mirna, that there might have been some lesbian tendencies there. And I'm not sure whether they have shown the text messages. It would be great if somebody from Indonesia who knows the ins and outs of this case can loop us all in on that. Or whether this was done strategically. Because in Indonesia, LGBTQ communities would be already viewed in a very negative light. So portraying Jessica as this potential lesbian who is going to conduct this vengeful attack on her would-be sexual victim of the same sex would obviously portray Jessica in much more of a negative light for the whole public and would just confirm her guilt in the eyes of everybody. And this might be a good timing to tie that all back with that proverb from the beginning, and why this trial was such a media sensation, and that was the social class. The urban middle class would see Jessica as somebody who is trying to prove the innocence while she's getting framed. But the poorer spectators would see her as somebody who is spoiled, trying to get away with murder, thanks to her wealth, thanks to her family status, and on top of that, thanks to the foreign help as well. The help of Australian police. But these wealthy urban classes only take up about 18% of the people in the country, where most of the population lives on less than $4 a day. So the majority of spectators would see even her going to Olivia to get this coffee as a huge privilege that is just inaccessible to majority of Indonesians. Because of this, most Indonesians would be viewing Jessica as one of those villains in the popular cinetrons, which is the equivalent of telenovelas in Indonesia. She was a daughter of the owner of the company dealing in imported chemicals, a member of the society that had the privilege to study abroad and also formed a part of the upper class in the society. And what didn't help was actually her defense team bringing the foreign forensic pathologists and just the foreign experts from Australia. Because there is this nationalism that is usually very much associated with the poorer class. So they view that as maybe these two families actually conspiring together, because both the victims and the perpetrator's family were ridiculously rich for Indonesian standards. Which means, what if the two of them are actually trying to get her off easily and are actually conspiring together? Because why else bring somebody from abroad? Like, aren't they experts enough? And because of this power, it was easy to see that maybe this isn't as far-fetched, the fact that the two families are collaborating, because the prosecution would be discarding so many witnesses, and it got ugly. One professor was actually questioned about his visa status in court and then was deported immediately after giving evidence and banned to return to Indonesia in the next 6 months. And the other one, the prosecution kind of fed a story to the tabloids that his former lover was actually involved in a crime in order to discredit their evidence. The focus was to make this as dramatic and interesting for the people, to make it as one well-produced cinetron, and actually to drive the focus away from the real evidence. One particular example that pops into my head is the profession of her dad, that I have just read in one source, and I just told you he worked at a company that was producing chemicals. So my mind immediately goes, okay, so her supply of cyanide isn't as crazy as we might think, but this was never further exploited. From the articles that I have found in English, and some of them I have translated to English, I have never seen that this was actually the focus of the trial. Again, Indonesians, if I'm missing out on something, please let me know, because this is what pops the red flags into my head immediately. Like, why is this not looked into? Like, she might actually have really easy access to supply. But rather, what they're focusing on is exposing everybody's dirty laundry and then just sort of moving on, and the evidence just was never the focus of this trial. So what remains for us to talk about, and that they have focused more on like actual physical evidence, supporting it with witness testimonies, were, well, the motives. There were two plausible ones. One was that Jessica was jealous of Mirna's life that she couldn't have, while Mirna, well, kind of tried to meddle into hers, and now suddenly Jessica had nothing while Mirna had everything, and the vengeance began. The second motivation would have been that Jessica actually had feelings for Mirna, so she kind of operated by that, like, if I can't have you, nobody else will, and that is why she organized this reunion and killed her on the spot, before somebody could intervene and just save her life. The clinical psychologist at the trial described her to have amorous narcissist personality, defining the person that often uses lies in order to make excuses for their actions. Both the criminologist and the clinical psychologist described her as somebody who was intelligent, calm, and confident, but inside she was an emotionally unstable person who had the potential to hurt others. What fed into this particular motivation was that her ex-boyfriend from Australia actually filed a restraining order against Jessica because he was fearful that she would become violent after the split, which kind of confirmed for everybody that the personality traits everybody has been lashing out about Jessica were all correct, and also fed into this revenge being the valid motivation. Now, I looked a bit into the psychology behind poisoners, so this isn't in the source material, but just to sort of see how it fits who Jessica was described as a person. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it kind of fits to a T. Poisoners usually resort to careful planning, they tend to be cunning, sneaky, and creative. They usually avoid physical confrontation and rely on verbal and emotional manipulation to get what they want from others. Poisoners also usually tend to have the sense of inadequacy, and they compensate for it through a scorn for authority and a strong need for control. They're usually viewed by psychologists as people without empathy, where their moral values are guided by greed and lust instead of ethics. And of course, there is the idea of the power and the control, because they're usually not discovered immediately. It takes the time for the poison to kick in, and then it takes the time for the toxicology reports to reveal that the person was actually poisoned, while they might not be searched or looked into as a suspect, which allows them control, and also it allows them to dispose of the evidence. Before the verdict was reached, it was explained to the court that Article 340 of the Criminal Code regarding premeditated murder didn't require a motive, and legal proof didn't require direct evidence. So it would come as no surprise that on October 27, 2016, Jessica Wongso was found guilty of premeditated murder, and she was convicted to 20 years in prison. She, of course, to this day, keeps denying the charges, keeps saying that she is innocent, and I think from what I read, again, I think this was the translated article, that she has kind of exhausted all of the appeals, so I'm not sure does she have to wait for a certain amount of time to appeal again, or is this it and she actually has to serve the full term of 20 years. So that is all that I have on this case. Of course, because of the language barrier, because of this being an international course of the language that I definitely do not understand, please, if there are any gaps that you want to fill in, do it in the comments. I would like to be looped into anything that I wasn't aware of. In the aftermath of the events, the only other things that I could find about like her appeals or just her life in jail was that obviously people have complained that she lives in this huge cell and that because she is of the upper class that she is treated better than most people would be treated in prisons in Indonesia, which, I mean, doesn't surprise me, but I don't see anything to like back it up. I couldn't find like how her cell looks like, and these are all coming from tabloids. One thing that still nobody to this day knows is how she got in the possession of cyanide. And of course, because the families are of the upper class, I don't think that anybody ever looked into a family member possibly working at a place that produced chemicals, you know. That might have been a freaking possibility. So let me know what you think about this case in the comments. Also, let me know what you think about this setup. Like, do you find it okay? Do you want just to stick to the lo-fi vibes? What would you like to see on that screen? Do you actually want to see the screen in the future videos at all? My husband brought it from work, so I was like, hey, you know how usually when I research and put myself in the calm place, I kind of do play these lo-fi videos because it's just a safe place for me. So it occurred to me, maybe I could play it during my videos as well. Maybe other people will find it calming, or maybe you find it too much. Let me know. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, because I'm here for you every freaking week. This is my lifeline. And also, I would very much like to quit customer service jobs, so if you are my manager and you find this video, it's not personal. It's not personal. I just been working in customer service for way too long. It's not nothing to do with you, okay? I just like true crime, and this is it. This is my life, okay? Sounds kind of sad. So I'm gonna leave this video right now, and I shall be seeing you guys, I think, later this week. Is this the first one or is it the second one? One or the other, or next week. Okay, cool. Do you want to say bye, the guy that has been burning the midnight oil behind me? I think this might cause me to go even crazier, because now I'm speaking to the screen, not into like the ether of the room. Wow, okay. I'm gonna get the fuck up now. I'm speaking to myself. I know that this is not my imaginary friend. I'm doing okay. Blink for help. I'm doing okay. Now, bye guys. Bye. Oh, bye. Somebody tell me, why did nobody look into this woman's dead? Like, okay, because he's rich. Yeah, you just answered it yourself. But like, when I read this, I was like, any other articles? Any elaboration on this? Like, this man works for a company, produces chemicals. Like, what kind of chemicals? Does she maybe have access to cyanide that he could like cover up? Like, what the fuck? Cases with experts where everybody relies on experts piss me right off. I actually listened to this podcast episode, I think it was Tenfold More Wicked, that spoke with this professional that said like she went on a speedy course for an expert, like she wasn't even working in a field or anything like that. Let me know if you want me to make a video on this, because this was so fucking fascinating for me. She said like she wasn't even working in the industry. She just went to like some expert course of like a couple of weeks, and they were allowed to like testify in trial. I think this is just US, but still, regardless, it's so freaking scary. And that is exactly why these experts can say anything in court, and why you have prosecutors experts and defenses experts saying two completely different freaking things, which is very much suspicious. Like, how do you even trust like what you hear in the jury? Like, one are saying like, oh no, cyanide didn't destroy her system and like she died of natural causes, and the other ones are like, oh no, this is definitely cyanide poison. Like, how the fuck can it be that different? Like, she either died by cyanide poisoning or she didn't. What the fuck do you mean? I need to look deeper into this, because like when I heard that, I was like, that makes complete sense, and is also one of the scariest things I have ever heard. Like, imagine your life depending on expert testimonies in trial, and they're just like fucking with it. They had like 2 weeks course, and they're like, I'm an expert. Like, what? On what fucking basis? If there are any gardeners in the comments, yeah, feel free to either drop comments or just like, you know, DM me on the socials, or like email me about the freaking orchid. Wait, did you just twist the camera? See the freaking orchid, right? Like, how do you like take care of it? I googled it. But what Google doesn't tell you is like, is this light damaging to it, right? Because it should be only the natural light. Also, you see like the little pool that is next to it? Yeah, how is that? Does that serve a purpose? Look at this. I have a florist like right next door. Yeah, I'm gonna go to Penny. I'm gonna ask Penny, but you know, you can still drop the comments, because now I have a plant in videos and I want it to live. Like, I don't want to be the plant killer. I don't want somebody to make this series and have me as like the focus of their true crime video, okay? I don't want to murder no plants. Okay, for people that make it to the outtakes, no context at all, but like drop a video in the comments of the Cinetron. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I was very hooked onto telenovelas like as a child, hence why I can kind of speak Spanish to a certain degree. So, if you have like a good Cinetron, like, really dramatic one, I wanna see it. I wanna see what they're all about. Just leave no context, let everybody be confused, and just drop a link in the comments, and I'll click watch it. Like, oh, yeah, I know what this is about. This is a secret between the people who stay until the outtakes and myself. I like secrets. Secrets are life. XOXO, gossip.